And welcome back to the channel. This is Thomas Goes Nostalgic, and in this episode we're going to be building a diorama for our NECA, Tokka, and Razhar. And once again, welcome back to the channel. This is Thomas Goes Nostalgic. If you can hit like, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so that you get notifications of when I post my next episode. Alright, so on this episode, I'm going to be showing how I built a diorama for my TMNT Secret of the Ooze Tokka and Razhar figures. So I don't have the diorama with me because I made it for my brother, and I really wanted to make it, one, because I wanted to kind of try out some realism and see if I was able to do that. A lot of the projects I worked on were mostly for the cartoon line when it came to Ninja Turtles. So this was my first chance to make something sort of realistic. And this way, when I go to make it for myself, I've already kind of worked through some of the issues when I made it for him. So I'll go through some of the photos of the project. I don't have much video, but I do want to go through the process and show how I made it. But first, let's go ahead and look at these figures. And first up, we have Tokka. Now, Tokka is the snapping turtle. They really did a great job with the likeness straight from the film. From every detail, the wraps around his wrist, the spikes on his shell. Those spikes are really sharp, but they even gave him articulated eyebrows and an articulated mouth. So there's definitely lots of expressions that you can put on this figure. Definitely a really great figure. And next up, we have Razhar. Now, Razhar is a werewolf. This is, once again, great representation from the film, great detail. You can see the detail in the armor and the chain links going around his body, and they really nailed it with the facial expressions. So you can close his mouth just like you can with Tokka, just a nice added detail so that you can have different expressions on the shelf when posing these figures. So here are the two figures side by side, Tokka and Razhar. This is how I like to display them. Tokka has that lead pipe and Razhar has that piece of wood. So when the movie came out, there was some confusion for the fans of why we weren't getting Bebop and Rocksteady, and just been doing a little research. I think it was because that Playmates, they really wanted to have all the rights to two new characters so that when they sold all the toys, none of the royalties would go back to the original creators. I'm not sure if that's the reason, but we did get some Playmates figures of the original figures that they were more representative of the cartoon. And one of my favorite accessories that this 2-pack came with was this box of donuts, the Simply Donuts package. And this came with the donut that had the pill that was supposed to reverse Tokka and Razhar's mutation. So if we ever get those Secret of the Ooze figures delivered, then that'll be a cool little display piece that you can showcase with them. And now that we've looked at these figures, let's start working on the diorama. So one of the first things I did for this diorama was make pallets. So I made these out of just spare pieces of foam that I had, and at the time I didn't have my hot wire tools, so I did this all with a knife. It was pretty difficult, but I was able to do it. Later on at the Dollar Tree, I was able to find these pallets. I think they could be used for ornaments or coasters, whatever they are, but I bought a whole bunch of them for whatever future projects I had, so that when I'm going to make this diorama for myself, I think I might just go ahead and use these pallets. I cut up the foam. I used some little line work in the base just to make it look like cracks in the ground. And I also wanted some more props, so I found these barrels. So those barrels that you see, those are a product called Silly Slime, but I also found a different version of them at the Dollar Tree. I think they go by a different name, but I think I'm going to do a video or an episode where I just show how I repaint them. This particular brand is called Goofy Goo or something like that. But it comes with the slime. Pretty neat little prop that you have there. I cut some holes in the roof because I wanted light to shine through it, and then I also used that gutter guard to make the fence with some wooden dowels as well. Next up, I magnetized everything and then started to give it a prime using, as always, black acrylic paint and Mod Podge. And once that dried, I started giving everything its first coats of paint. I made some other pieces of wood to put on top. And again, I kept some space so that light could shine through. And for the back of this diorama, I really wanted some corrugated metal. So I found these borders that you would normally see in a classroom. And this is before I knew that you can just purchase some corrugated paper. So that worked out pretty well. And at this point in the diorama, everything's still looking a little too clean, so you just use some black wash, black acrylic paint, and some water, and just lightly brush it on, just so it gets in all those cracks. And like I said, everything's still looking pretty clean, so it needs that black wash treatment. And I added the fences in. Those can be removable, so if my brother chooses not to display with them, he can do so. When it came to the part of the diorama that was supposed to be that corrugated metal, I just did some dry brushing with some brown acrylic paint, and that gave it that rust effect. At this point in the project, I just want to put the figures in so I can see how the color tones match, and I think they match pretty well, so it does look like they could exist in this world that I've created, and so that's a good sign at this point in the project. Next, I added some flocking. I think I went a little overboard with the flocking. I put all of the flocking in the cracks that I made, and then coming down the walls and at the bottom of the outside, but I think it came out pretty well. One of my favorite details is putting in this circuit breaker box. Really happy with how that came out. So I'm loving how dirty these walls came out. Just to give it another layer of depth, I wanted to make it look like the windows were boarded up, so I added thin pieces of foam and painted like little silver dots on it to make it look like it was nailed in. And the last thing I had to do before assembly was just seal it with some Mod Podge. And just wrapping up this diorama, the last thing to do is just box it up and ship it off to my brother. So let's see how it looks on his shelf. And that does it for this episode, folks. If you like this content, leave a like and subscribe and ring that bell so that you get notifications of when I post my next episode. Until then, we'll catch you next time.